bikepacking is a great way to escape from reality and explore new places. But regardless of how long you're away for, be it a simple overnighter or a trip of many months, your enjoyment of it is going to be linked in no small part to your stomach.
Now, on a smaller trip, you can probably carry most of the food you require with you. However, the reality is, on a longer trip, you are going to have to source food while you're going along. Where and what you buy is very dependent on where you are in the world. However, there are a few golden rules that you can stick to help you make the most out of a situation. Part of the joy of bikepacking is experiencing different cultures and cuisine. It's always important to try and eat with locals when you can, and try the local dishes like we are here. Bikepacking will be quite energy intensive, so you need to get the carbs in to fuel your riding. Quite often, rice or pasta-based dishes are a good go-to option. However, in countries like Morocco, quite often bread is the carbohydrate of choice.
Yeah, now you also have to think about vegetables. Nutrients are an important part, and actually they can be quite hard to get in when you're out on the road. So take the opportunity where you can. Fruit is great, obviously, it's quite easily transportable on the bike. But remember also, in certain countries, that golden rule where if you can't peel it or wash it yourself, then you probably want to think about avoiding it.
So my theory with bikepacking meals is that I'm not trying to make a gourmet meal. It's about getting the energy in that I need. I can't really carry things like dairy and fresh fruit, fresh meat that well on a bike, especially in a climate like this, because it will go off and you don't want to sort of be eating meat on the turn and making yourself ill. Also, it's easier just to cook one pot. So if you've got a base for it, in this case rice, you can then add sort of pre-prepared or half-cooked ingredients to it. So that could be things like tinned fish, tinned meat, or cured meat, or even like things like beans and things like that. And then you can add different sauces. So some people take little salts and pepper, a little bit of olive oil, and a little bit of flavour really does improve it. Yum.
Whenever you're on the bike for a long time, you need to eat as you're going along. The key to good ride food is to have something that you can easily digest and it's not going to fall apart in your hands.
Quite often you're going to have to rely on gas stations and small shops to buy your snacks as you're going along. So here's our quick guide to what to look out for. Ideally we'll get some nuts or some dried fruit, something natural to snack on. However, that's not always possible, so let's go inside and see what we can find. Now, there's a good selection of cakes here. They're a pretty good staple. Plenty of energy in them and they don't really go off too much. And they've got their own wrapping, so they're not going to sort of melt and go everywhere. Got some biscuits as well, they're a good bet. Plenty of calories in that. And let's get some sweets too, just in case it gets nasty. I got some treats. I've got some water. I'm afraid
it's so unhealthy.
It is.
You'd even go there.
It's pretty unhealthy, but there's not really many options. Got some nice Oreos, a few cakes, some mystery biscuits, and good old Haribos. Don't beat yourself up about your diet when you're away bikepacking. After all, you're not going to be able to follow your healthy meal plan at all times. Sometimes you just need to get the calories in, and a little luxury is going to improve your day and might help your mood.
Glad you said that, Josh, because that was me thinking that my body was a temple, but
now sometimes, when it's all just a bit too much and you're a bit too tired, you just need a bottle of Coke for a caffeine and sugar rush. And sometimes that's what it takes to get you through the day.
yeah, whether it's just tired legs or a tired head, it can make all the difference, can't it?
Yeah, definitely.
Sugar. Liquid sugar. Kill for an ice cream as well.
Something to consider when you're buying food to take on a bikepacking trip is perishable items, especially in a warmer climate like this. Unfortunately, it means you probably can't carry things like fruit and fresh meat as easily because they could go off. And if they do go off and you eat them, it could make you ill, which isn't great, especially if you're in somewhere remote. Things to go for tend to be highly refined things. Unfortunately, they're not the healthiest, but they don't go off and they do last a long time. Things like tuna are great. They're in a tin, they're not going to go off, and they're going to keep for a number of days. Healthier options include dried fruit and nuts. And these will give you plenty of energy and are not going to go off and make you ill. Right, so we've got some snacks for the road. We now need to store them on the bike. So there's a few different areas that I like to keep snacks. The main one being the feed bag here. So this is great for eating on the move. You can just get to it easily, open it up and grab your food out. So I put things like biscuits, probably some Haribos, all within arm's reach in there. And then I like to leave a little bit of space in the frame bag as well, so you can put some extra cakes in there. It might get a bit squashed though, but you soon get over it after a while. Standards tend to drop. And then finally, for bulkier items, I like to just put it under the bungees on the saddle pack. So you can squeeze it under there, and that'll stay nice and tight on there. Just bear in mind that it's going to be in the sun, so if it's perishable, you might not want to put it there.
Now, another key point, of course, is your hydration, which is probably more important than your food. You run out of calories, you'll go slowly and feel a bit bad. If you run out of water, the health implications can very quickly become quite severe indeed. So the first rule is to drink little and often, and the second rule is to make sure you've actually got enough storage for water on your bike. As you can see, when you start getting weighed down with bags and stuff, it rapidly limits your choices. So a good tip is to actually use a collapsible water bladder that can stash inside your bags or on top of them. And a pro tip, I'm told, is to actually use a full-length frame bag, and then you can fill the whole bottom part with a water bladder, and that'll increase the storage capacities quite significantly. And the other thing when you're drinking a lot, of course, is salt. Now, you might find that on a short trip you can take a little tube of electrolyte tabs, and that will obviously add that for when you're drinking, but an alternative is the old school diaurolite approach. So the flavour of these is a little bit different, a bit less sweet, so that might be more to your palate. Now, you might also find that your body starts craving salt, in which case you should probably listen to it and then treat yourself to a giant bag of crisps or chips. And bananas as well is a healthier alternative. They've got potassium in there, which is another great electrolyte. Right, let's go. You also need to consider storing water on your bike. Now on this trip we've got 700ml bottles, and that's just about enough to see us through. However, on a longer trip or in more remote areas, you may want to consider running a cage underneath a down tube, or carrying a bladder inside your frame pack to give you extra storage. Now in Europe and North America, it's often safe to drink the tap water. However, in more far-flung places, such as Morocco, the tap water isn't always safe to drink. So it's important to try and drink bottled water when you can, or if it's not available, take the appropriate filtering equipment to make water safe. Now that can be a water filter, a UV pen, or just chlorine tablets. That's a lot of chat for 1900 metres, Josh.
I know.
Nice work, mate.
I'm out of breath.
Woo-hoo-hoo! Do make sure you give this video a big thumbs up if you're enjoying the bikepacking content here on GCN. And if you'd like a little bit more information on exactly what we're taking, Josh very kindly talked me through it when we were actually back in the UK before we'd come out. So if you want to see that video, click just down there.